I was listening to the story about, it was a story of a family in Washington, and the little boy called the Bigfoot the Cowboy Man. And he had, apparently it had made an effort to steal this kid. And it hit me. My children were in that playpen behind me with nothing but a mosquito net over them. It could have crept up behind me and taken both of my children, and I wouldn't have known.
Father just got like a Mustang or something from Wyoming, okay? He had it out in the corral because he couldn't put it in the barn in the stalls with the other horses. It would kick and made all the other horses nervous. Had a Seminole Indian working the horse, trying to break it every day. So they had it out in the corral. This skunk ape snuck up behind this horse and grabbed it on its hind quarters. This particular horse kicks out, jumps over the corral, runs into the pasture, to get away. At this point, the rancher's out there just blasted away with the dirty. Skunk ape runs into the swamp.
I went up there one day after that, or 2 days after that. I went up there and sat in the silence up there, and I'm telling you, man, it was free. It was crazy. There was a crazy vibe up there still. I did what I could to kind of get things under control, but I told her, I said, you need to get off this property. I feel like no matter how strong you are, it's almost like standing in the ocean. You can't stand still without moving your feet. You're going to get knocked over eventually, no matter how strong, whatever. You can't withstand a barrage of weird spiritual energy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Paranormal Odyssey Live. I am your host, Wayne, joined as always by my co-host, producer, partner in crime, friend, Miss Tiffany. How you doing, man?
I'm so good.
I know you are. You've been waiting on this episode for a while.
Oh my God, like the history of forever. I listened to them when I worked, and they got me through so many just awful retail days.
Of course, you guys know we are talking about the cryptids of the corn, guys. Actually, we just have one tonight. We got Justin hanging out backstage, and everything he's going through, I'm going to let him tell you guys about it. But what him and his wife are going through right now, the fact that he's here tonight just says a lot about him and his character and his dedication to this. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that. But we got Justin. Jay had a work emergency, so he was not able to join us tonight. But as we said, we got Justin backstage. We're going to get to him soon. But, yeah, you have been talking these guys up for a while.
I know. And I told him, I was like, and I don't mean this in any kind of way. Okay. But I totally fangirl. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to come on our show. Because it's so different, like talking to a person face to face than listening to, them in your head every week, all day for 5 days, 40 hours a week. It's just really because you have that back and forth communication.
That's right.
It's really cool.
We'll go ahead and get to the poll question real quick because Justin is a biologist, and this one is going to tie in with him quite a bit. I try to tie it in with our guests every poll question that we have. But this one tonight, will eDNA be what finally proves the existence of Sasquatch? And from what I have heard from Justin, I think I know what his answer is going to be to that. But those of you here that listen to that Bigfoot podcast that Brian King Sharp and I host, y'all have heard Justin. If you listen to our DNA episode, we shared a clip from the episode that the guys did with Brian on Sasquatch Odyssey, where Justin talked about how difficult it was to collect DNA, not just eDNA or just DNA in general, just how hard it is. And the fact that people like myself, my organization, Manimal Research, I've been doing this for a while now, and I had no idea how hard it would be to collect DNA. I didn't go to school for this. I didn't know. So I'm sure that we will touch on that a little bit during the episode. But before we get to it, as we like to say, we got some bills to pay. I see Miss Jessica Jones in the audience. How are you doing, ma'am? Jessica will be speaking at our Squatch Out this year, the Cryptid Huntress,
That'll be very
along
cool.
with Miss Naomi Finn, who is
Yeah.
also in the audience tonight. So welcome, ladies, and everyone else. I see Bristol, Troy, Alex. All bunch of our regulars are already here. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Tiffany is doing a 24-hour shift in Montgomery County. So he may be here eventually. But you know how it goes. He's on a call right now. So he'll pop in as he can, or he'll watch the replay. So
I know he will. Mr. Tiffany, for those of you that don't know, that don't watch the show, that is Tiffany's husband. I came up with the name Mr. Tiffany, and he has completely embraced it. Got him a T-shirt, Paranormal Odyssey T-shirt, says Mr. Tiffany on it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's actually, you guys come and see it. I mean, we're gonna be at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Con July 26th, or no, 27th. We're leaving here the 26th. Anyways, the 27th, and he's totally gonna be wearing that shirt. He's so excited about it too.
He supports you so very much, and I think that's awesome. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
All right, let's pay some bills, ma'am.
Oh, we have to.
If you are new to the show, we would appreciate it if you would take a second, just hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you. Tell your family, tell your friends, help us continue to grow the show.
And if you would like to come on with Wayne and myself, you can reach out to both of us, Wayne at paranormalworldproductions.com or Tiffany at Paranormal World Productions. And if I'm not mistaken, we have one day open in June, possibly, maybe. If not, we're already booking for July. But we're only booking a few shows for July because we are taking that trip at the end of the month. So if you would like to come on with us, hit one of us up.
Also, I want to ask everybody, head over to paranormalworldproductions.com, check out the website, check out all the other shows, Sasquatch Odyssey, that Bigfoot podcast, Basement Hangout, Kentucky X-Files. You've heard me talk about them. Y'all pick you up some merch as well. We would greatly appreciate that. Sorry,
I had to swallow.
Yeah.
If you have any questions for my unprofessional self, no, I'm just kidding. If you have any questions for our guest, please put them in all capital letters. We will grab them up during the show. We will highlight them, and we ask all of the questions at the end. It keeps the flow to the show going better, and you have more additional time to ask your questions. Just put them in all capital letters, please.
All right, guys, last thing we'll talk about before we get to Justin. We've kind of hit a wall. We haven't added any new members in a while. So we are still we're hoping to fill the spots for the giveaway. The first 50 people that sign up for our members only group will receive a Yeti lunchbox, an autographed copy of Naomi Finn's book, an autographed copy of The Unfamiliars by Miss Tiffany herself, and a Paranormal Odyssey t-shirt. We got about 15 spots left. If you guys, I hope that you guys will take advantage of that. It's just $1.99 a month. You get all kind of extra shows. We have our members only Discord. We're going to be doing movie nights, just all kind of perks for members. 199 pennies, guys. It's not asking a whole lot. So if you could help us out by becoming a member, we would greatly, greatly appreciate that. Also, if you notice the bottom of the screen, our super chats are open. You guys have been, kicking ass with that lately, helping us out quite a bit. If you feel so inclined tonight to help us out with some super stickers or super chats or whatever, we would greatly, greatly appreciate that. All right, tell us a little bit about these guys. Now, we've talked about them a little bit, but do you have anything else to add?
Just that they're amazing. I mean, they're recent, and I'm interested to hear because on this most recent podcast, and it's so funny, I love the banter that he and Jay have. Now, he is Mr. E, and Jay is J Clone. And so the banter that they have is, I mean, it's phenomenal. The chemistry is amazing. So, but he was like, you know, they were talking, and Jay had this sudden memory, you know, and you know, I don't remember. It's so bad, but he had this sudden memory. He can tell us. And he was like, every time you open your mouth, I swear you have been abducted. And you know, if you listen to him and you listen to Jay talk, it really does make you think, you know, buddy, I'm really thinking that you just don't remember. They've like put some screen memories up and you're totally oblivious to the fact that you've been taken and returned. So yeah.
I heard that in their intro. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Real quick before we get them out, I want to acknowledge maybe Susie just gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, ma'am, so very much. So those 5 people will receive a free membership for 30 days to check it out, try it out, see if you would like to become a full-time member. It only lasts for 30 days. So hope you guys enjoy what you see. And maybe Susie, thank you very much, ma'am, for doing that.
Thank you.
All right. All of that out of the way. Let's get to your boy.
Let's get him.
Justin,
hey guys, thank you for having me on here. I'm laughing the whole time. I know you guys could see, that everybody at home couldn't see. But yeah, cracking me up. The banter thing with Jay.
Yeah.
I know the eDNA thing we'll talk about too, because I just was on another rant 2 days ago about eDNA, which is fine. I love, that's what I did for a living. But the first episode that the Jay thing came out, Jay forever swore, "Oh, I'm the great and powerful mystery." Sorry, I'm bad. I'm the worst professional podcaster anybody will ever meet when it comes to any of that stuff.
Well, you see my title, don't you? Unprofessional.
Yes. So, no, we did a Willard UFO. I don't, you guys know, but everybody at home, it's this really unknown, UFO abduction with a series of kids. The dad, caused the divorce and some very serious mental problems in the last couple of decades in Willard, Ohio, which is like a town of 400 people. Me and Jay have actually drove out to the site. It's nothing crazy or special. It's right by a dump, and that was the point. But these kids' encounters, Jay forever swore, I never had a paranormal encounter. I've never had a paranormal encounter. Hi, Jessica. I love Jessica. And as we're reading this episode, he's like, well, as we're talking about what happened to these kids for their abduction, it's like, that happened to me. Huh. That happened to me. Huh. Oh, yeah, I looked in my closet one night, and all of the coat hangers were swinging, and then I just went back to bed. Yeah, you know what? I did wake up naked, tucked into my bed so tight I couldn't move, and my clothes were in a pile in the corner. But I just thought my grandparents tucked me into bed. And we're like, so the whole episode, and then that's the running joke is he has, Tiffany was saying, I can't remember what the episode was. We batch record, so it's too, my brain, an episode came out last week, we may have recorded a month ago, so it's hard for me to remember. But yeah, he just did have another thing where it was just every time he opens his mouth, he was abducted by aliens.
Yeah, it was the Hudson Valley UFO mass hysteria.
Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. He was abducted. He's seen demons, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But
totally.
I know we talked off air. I am, obviously, for anybody that's watched or listened to us before, not in a studio. I'm at Ronald McDonald House in a lobby. I know you guys probably seen me waving at people when I was on the backstage. Most of the people that are here on our floor with us know what I do for a living, so most of the time they just wave as they walk by. But yeah, so if you see me wave at anybody or anything, I can see the elevator. How we ended up here, anybody that doesn't know where Ronald McDonald House is, It's a charity organization that deals with like a lot of like babies that end up in the NICU, you know, a lot of stuff with kids and women and families, so we can stay close to the hospital. My wife went into preterm labor with our twin girls at 26 weeks. We got here on that Friday. They thought the girls were coming, which, you know, they were. There was a lot of stuff happening. They stopped it, though, and we've been blessed with, let's see, we're working on 32 weeks now. We're halfway to 32 weeks. So we've been here a month and a half, but that's a good thing. You know, the longer the babies are in there, the better. But yeah, so I haven't been in my own studio in a while.
That's so awesome, man. I know you guys had to have been terrified when she went into labor at 26 weeks. I mean, certainly kids made it that early, but it's not ideal.
Yeah, and like I told you guys off air, is that like 26 as far as a preemie baby is kind of 26, 27 is kind of in that middle. You know, they go as far down as 24, and then go up to 30, and then after 30, it's a different game. You know, they're still premature, but it's a very different thing than being under 30. But our neighbor had it at 23 weeks, twin girls, and they're still doing good. So we're in an amazing facility with great workers, great people that care. So yeah, if you hear or see anybody walk by, that's where I am, just for everybody at home.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, your wife handed you your little man before we came on. You had a chance to say hello to him. He is 10 months old, and your wife is pregnant with twin girls. Bless your heart.
Yes. Dude. So, like we talked off air, prayers for you, Mrs. Justin. Thank you. Is that Bristol?
Yes, Bristol. Yep.
I'm on my phone, so the names are itty bitty. So
yeah.
So here's another. Like I said, I'm an open book. Me and my wife had a lot of trouble getting Atlas. We had a couple losses before him. You know, so we weren't expecting another kid, let alone 2 more kids, that fast. So we weren't prepared. You know, we weren't expecting to have 3 kids under 1 year old.
Oh my God.
That's great. Well, see, and my daughter has, we have 4 grandsons, and our oldest is 4, and it goes 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, yeah.
My mom was, sorry.
No, I'm just going to say my daughter Scarlett will be 3 next month, and my hands are so damn full with her. I could not imagine adding 2 more a year younger than her. I couldn't do it, man.
It's like once you have 1 kid, it's the same thing. It's just you throw up, you know, you put a bowl of food on the floor, you know, just like that. No, it's, you know, it's definitely a different lifestyle having 3 kids in diapers, 3 kids. Oh, thank you, HK. It's definitely different. We're very excited. We live a very kid fun life. You know, we're speakers at tons of conferences. So their dad's a professional monster talker. And we get to travel. We're 4-H advisors, so we do a lot of stuff with kids there. So me and my wife go to kids museums now before we had Atlas.
Right. So now you just have an excuse to not be looked at.
Yeah. Now we're not weird anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So Justin, let's get into the creepy stuff. What got you started down this road of looking into just weird shit?
So sorry, 1 second. There's somebody walking by. No, so before the podcast, I had both a shadow person encounter and a Bigfoot encounter. And I still didn't believe in Bigfoot probably till about 3 years after I had my Bigfoot encounter. Because I was going to school to be a biologist. Biologists don't believe in Bigfoot, and that's wrong. I'm sure we'll talk about that tonight at some point. A lot of biologists do believe in Bigfoot. They just don't talk about it. You know, Jay was hanging out all weekend with Meldrum and stuff like that. You know, a really high-level anthropologist and a couple other biologist friends that we have. Like, we have a couple of zoologist friends that are, you know, our Discord's really weird because zoologist and virologist and everything, because it's, as far as people in that field, you're kind of the outcast if you start looking too hard into the paranormal. But there's tons of people that do, just not the old guys generally.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of I was always into sea monsters and lake monsters way before any of that. I'm a fisherman. I was a fishery biologist. I've caught alligator gar and sturgeon. I've pulled big bull sharks and hammerheads out of the Atlantic and the Gulf. So when you experience those animals like that, and you can really see how a monster could go unrecognized. For example, in 2018, we discovered a new species of rice whale. So this is an animal the size of a semi that avoided detection forever. And it's a whale in the ocean. So, the ocean's a big place, and I really don't think people understand how absolutely massive the open ocean is as an environment, how many species hide out there. So beaked whales, I'm sure you guys have heard of them, but for all the listeners at home, beaked whales are a different group of whales. There's baleen whales, toothed whales, beaked whales, and porpoises. Beaked whales, actually, some species get giant tusks that come out of the sides of their mouth. Like a Hubb's beaked whale, the capped beaked whale. They're some of the deepest diving mammals on the planet. And some of the species we've only seen one time from one dead animal. So there's a whole giant species of whales out there that the only reason we know about them, one was a new species in New Zealand, and I think 2010, and it died because it had a bunch of plastic in its stomach. First time any human had ever seen one, as far as we know, as far as documentable. So animals hiding in the water is what really got me into this stuff. Now, how me and Jay got going to the podcast stuff's a pretty funny, goofy story. Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely.
Sure. Absolutely.
I'm known in some circles as a little bit of a drinker. I drink real mildly, if you get me. Yeah. So Jay is, his family owns the local bowling alley, which has a bar, and I was a heavy patron. So me and Jay have always kind of known each other. Our grandpas were really good friends. Our moms were really good friends. But Jay's about 5 years older than me. So we never really got to hang out in junior high or high school. He was always just enough years ahead of me that we really didn't get to see each other. Yeah. So one night I'm at the bowling alley, and I've had a lot of not water. And I go up to him real kind of aggressive. And I'm like, "Do you believe in Bigfoot?" And he just looked at me for a second. He's like, yeah, I do. I do believe in Bigfoot. So then we started talking about Bigfoot. And then we formed with another group of people, the Hardin County Bigfoot Society, due to no fault of anybody, but it ended up just being me and Jay coming to the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Not water, yeah. So I was doing full research and presenting, I had papers for everybody and stuff like that. And it was just me and Jay and Emily. Obviously, Emily, my wife, was there too. So at one time I'm just like, well, we can just do this at my house. We don't have to go to a public place if all these other people aren't going to be able to come. And then one day we're just like, well, we'll buy a microphone so they can listen to it, And then we had our whole first year. We're entering our third year. We'll be 3 years old as a podcast in November. Our whole first year, I think our max was 300 listeners. Mm-hmm. And now, tens of thousands of amazing, beautiful people. It's a crazy ride. And we're very thankful for this ride. But if you had asked me 2.5 years ago, I was going to, the podcast was just for fun for me and Jay. And it's still just fun for me and Jay. We don't do it with any expectations of anything because and you guys have heard it, but my favorite is when I blow Jay's mind.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, probably about every 4 episodes, I get something. He's coming up to record tomorrow, and I got one. So he doesn't watch anything. He doesn't listen to anything. So I can tell you guys. It's all about corn sharks.
Ooh.
And he has no idea.
It'll be interesting.
hopefully I answered a question in some form in that ramble.
Yeah, you did. Now, one thing that stuck out to me was you walking up to your now podcast partner, and first words out of your mouth were, "Do you believe in Bigfoot?" I started my organization, Manimal Research, back in 2019, and the guy that is, I guess, I'm the president of the organization. My buddy is the VP, and my text to him, I hadn't talked to him in months, and I just texted him out of the blue, said, "Hey man, is Bigfoot real?" And he said, "Yeah, he's real. Let's go get him." So that's how it started up as well. So I mean that's so cool. You just walked up to a dude that you barely knew and asked about Bigfoot.
And like I knew Jay, I just didn't know him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, me and him had probably before that had talked 3 times outside of the bar. Besides him being a bartender, being like, "Hey, I need 3 Washington apples for just me." Besides that, maybe 3 or 4 times. And it started a beautiful thing. I mean, I can't tell you how thankful I am. Like, we're asked to speak, and that's a crazy thing to me. I'm going to tear up tonight at some point because we've been reflecting a lot this week. But like, we've been on stage we've on stage with Meldrum and Moorhead and Lyle and Kent. These people I grew up watching on TV.
Yeah.
People that, and they're all so nice. I gotta say, everybody, like, it's really hard to find somebody in that field that's not. Everybody has their off day, sure. Everybody's gonna have a day where a conference is too much, and they, but yeah, it's been an amazing thing. And Jay is really, in my opinion, he's really come out of a shell for this stuff. Because I didn't get to go to the conference this past weekend as recording this due to my situation. So we were MCs and leading a casting class. So Jay did it all and he did amazing. The news was there. He didn't even know the news was filming him. Like, the news was like 10 feet from him filming him casting Bigfoot cast with Ron. Ron was there and Meldrum were there. And it just was fun, So it's been an amazing ride. And it just all comes down to that question: do you believe in Bigfoot?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Cool. I'm
crazy
speaking at my first 2 events this year. I'm speaking in Ohio and then in Missouri later. And the one in Ohio, I'm actually doing a casting class. The lady asked me
That's
to do a
awesome.
casting class. So yeah, that's pretty
Which
cool.
Ohio one is it?
It's the first one ever. It's the Spirit of the Forest Bigfoot Festival.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's the very first one. It's brand new. So
Ohio.
I'm speaking at the Ozark, Missouri.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's when somebody thinks that much of you to ask you to do stuff like that, it's humbling and amazing. To think you guys have heard. I think every episode we do is stupid by the end of it.
It's so funny.
And I'm like, I don't even want to publish this. And then it'll be like the Denver airport stuff is our 2 highest listened to episodes ever, part 1 and part 2. And I have no idea. It's completely out of stuff, and it's everybody, like, a lot of people's favorite episodes. But yeah, sorry, I'm a rambler.
Well, but you guys also have the Mr.
Good.
Bonus episodes, so that are really cool. And see, Lucy's Mimi here. Lucy's Mimi. She was actually my supervisor at work, so she knows I constantly had my AirPods in, and now she's on here. So I think it's really cool. But getting back to what you said about having people ask you to do things. Okay, I worked retail from 99 until a year ago. Okay, and then I got into this and writing books, and then my books were actually, to start, they were episodes for Wayne and Brian, Dogman, Terror in the Woods, and the Unfamiliars. And then, all of a sudden, we're going to this conference in July, and like people want to meet me. I'm so weird. Like, I'm a dork. Why do you want to meet me? So it's pretty humbling. It's crazy.
Like, yeah, when people ask you to like sign stuff, we had a couple, like, we've had one. Nicole's a famous one, but people drive like hundreds, if not over 1,000 miles to hang out with you at a conference and ask you to sign something, and you're like guys, we're famous for it. Like, there's always an after party with Cryptids of Corn at every conference
Yeah.
because we're just people. You know, we're gonna go to a bar. I'll tell you what bar we're going to. You guys want to come hang out? You know, come hang out. But yeah, we're just drunks from Ohio. We're nobody special or nothing like that. Yeah. And to have people ask you to sign stuff is weird, in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the Smoky Mountain Conference last year with Brian, and Brian was actually helping host the event, MC the event. He was talking to people that had encounters, and I was there just because I'm Brian's friend and I host one of his podcasts, and I was like watching the booth and stuff, and people were asking me to have a picture made with me and to sign this. I'm like, I'm nobody, dude.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is really. It just makes you just so thankful. But at the same time, we do want people to know that
nobody.
We put our pants on the same way they do. You know, we're glad that we can have an impact on them, but I don't want anybody to ever feel like they can't come and talk to me. You know, just because I'm on a screen, I'm still the same person.
I'm drunk on camera and I'm drunk in person, so
there you go. All right, let's Justin, if you don't mind, let's shift gears a little bit, talk a little bit of scientific shit. You are a biologist.
I was.
You were a biologist.
So here's the thing with biologists or biology. You're only a biologist when you're getting a check for being a biologist. Otherwise, you're a naturalist. So like Tony Merkel is the one that picks on me about it all the time. He calls me the biologist on everything because I've talked just to pick on me, which in a fun way. But yes, what biology questions?
Well, I was going to get back to the poll question tonight, and I will read it again for everyone. It is, will eDNA be what finally proves the existence of Sasquatch? And right now, we are at 60% no and 40% yes. And I think I know where you're going to lean, Justin, but go ahead and fill us in.
Well, why don't you tell me where you think I'm going to lean?
I think you're going to say no, because we have to have a top specimen. And I agree with that.
100%. So I did eDNA I did it as a big part of my job. So aquatic watershed eDNA is the most accurate way to get samples right now of ideas of complete species assemblages, is what it's called, which is all the species present in that watershed. There's two major issues with what I just said. Right now, it is like using a shotgun to put a pinhole in a paper. It is unrefined. eDNA is in its infancy. It collects everything, and I mean everything. So when we did use it for endangered species surveys, there were some issues with it, because if there was bones still in the watershed from that species within the last 100 years, we would get hits for it. So the species may not be there anymore, but yet we're still getting hits for that species in that watershed. So that's a big negative, right? There's no discernment whether it's, a fresh corpse. So, like, for example, an eDNA team in Canada that we knew, were doing a survey sampling, and they started getting hits for a mammoth. They're like, we're getting hits for mammoth everywhere. Like, there's a mammoth somewhere right here. Like, they were convinced there's a mammoth, and then they finally found, I think it was the knee of the mammoth. It was unthawed from the permafrost in the riverbank. So water was going over it, taking DNA samples. So we're talking extremely small fragmented DNA for eDNA. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So that's issue number one with eDNA, is it's really, really in its infancy. It's collecting everything with no discernment, whether the animal's been dead for 3,000 years or not. The second one, which is the bigger issue for when we're talking about Sasquatch, is that eDNA is only as good as its palette of comparison. So you basically need a plate of all the DNA samples you're comparing it to. And what I mean by this is that it just now I can't talk. It synthesizes the samples of all the species. And if it's not a species in that sample, it'll go unknown species. eDNA is not mitochondrial DNA, where we're getting really good ideas of, parental species and stuff like that. This is like a shotgun. We're blanketing everything with, basic information. So you get a lot of unknown species. And when we did our test, it wasn't odd to get unknown species because it wasn't in our data bank. Didn't mean they weren't animals we didn't know about. For example, if you're near a zoo, we're going to get big game from Africa in our sample. It doesn't mean there's a lion in Cincinnati roaming. It means there's a lion in the zoo. That the water from that enclosure washed into the river and we got the sample from it. So without a body of a Sasquatch, as far as eDNA is concerned, it means nothing. It's going to be one of these unknown samples forever and ever and ever. But retroactively, the second Bigfoot gets proven, as in there's a corpse, and we finish its DNA sequence, all those DNA samples, those eDNA samples, can be reran, and now we have a great idea of Sasquatch abundancy and range. So it will never be the tool that proves Sasquatch exists. It can be the tool that tells us where they live and how many there are.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. You explained that so fucking beautifully. That was great.
My biggest issue with Seth kisses. My biggest issue with science, and you guys have heard, we try to do it, is that it doesn't have, there's a big disconnect with science and the public because scientists love to use very large, fancy words without explaining what they mean. Every time I use a word, I try to always explain what it means. In eDNA, I never said it means environmental DNA sample.
Right.
It's taking water or dirt or air, and we run it through a micron filter. So the micron filters, the one that collects the DNA fragments is less than a micron wide. So for example, single-celled algae are like 7 to 11 microns wide. And you can't even, this is stuff, way beyond the naked eye stuff. We're catching, viruses are about the only thing that goes through that filter with being that small. So yeah, and it's an extremely hard process to do. It's, so it's extremely tedious. It's very time sensitive from taking the sample, getting it to the lab, processing it, and then getting it ran. And you have to keep it cold immediately. So, we're moving hundreds of pounds of ice, while we're working in the sun, wearing weight. It's a very difficult thing to do. So, yeah, I don't know. I ranted about that. It's very hard to do. So anybody that does it, I greatly appreciate.
Well, you got to figure the
contaminant.
Sorry, Wayne.
No, go ahead, Tiffany. Go ahead.
The contamination factor is really high too.
So that's. I do want to talk about that with classical DNA collection, mitochondrial DNA collection, because that's a big issue with Sasquatch too. But we can talk about that in a minute if you're okay with that.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I was just gonna say, because when I went to college for criminal justice, so there was a section in my course where we did the hands-on forensics and collecting the DNA and everything you had to do, and it's very expensive. Yeah.
It sucks. You can just say it sucks.
It
sucks. Gloves and you can destroy a sample by breathing on it.
Yeah.
And people do not get that you can destroy your days, hours, will work tens of thousands of dollars by holding it too close to your face.
Yep.
Damn. Yeah.
Wayne, what was your question?
Yeah, tell me if this is true or not, because I want to ask your opinion about something that I watched the other night. But first, before I get there, I want to ask, is it true that a sample that eDNA samples are only good for like 2 weeks. Like
They're
if you
less than
collect a
that.
sample less than that,
eDNA is different than mitochondrial DNA. eDNA is fast. Like no, it needs to be at a lab. Normally it's 24 to 48 hours maximum. I mean maximum 48 hours. With the kind of aquatic eDNA we were doing with that shotgun sampling, it does not last. It breaks DNA in that system breaks down incredibly quick.
okay. So I ask that because just a couple of nights ago, I knew that we had you coming on, and I had those of you that are familiar with or that listen to that Bigfoot podcast. If you listen to Brian and mine, the episode that we did on DNA, we played a clip from when you guys were on with Brian over at Sasquatch Odyssey, where you broke down the collection of DNA and how difficult it was.
It sucks.
So I knew that going into this episode a couple of nights ago. I couldn't. I was up late. I had a hard time falling asleep. And right when I started to get sleepy, I'm flipping through the channels and I see this show called, I think it was Kingdom of the Yeti or something like that. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but man, I was so tired, but I made myself stay up to finish it. But because they were going up to this place, and forgive me, guys, I was half asleep. There's so much that I missed, but I'm going to give you what I got. There's this group of people. They're going up. I think it was in Tibet, and they were going up to where this trackway had been. A guy had taken pictures of a trackway of believed Yeti, and they were going up there to try to get some eDNA, and they were taking samples along the way. Well, they make it all the way up to this incredibly high place where people aren't even allowed to go, and it's all frozen. Most of it's frozen. There's like 3 feet of snow, so it's like hard as hell to get around. And they finally find this trackway, but they also found a couple of lakes that were either thawing out or hadn't frozen over yet. So the lady, the biologist or whatever she was, the one that was in charge of taking samples, she took some samples from the lake. And at the end of the show, they went over the results. And the results from that lake were 99% Homo sapien. What do you take from that? And that's why I asked, if it's only good for 2 weeks, there's no humans that were up there within 2 weeks. That was my point.
Homo sapien. So that sounds. I didn't see it, so it's hard for me to talk. And I did eDNA collecting here in the U.S. I did DNA collecting here in the U.S. Very different than being on top of a mountain, an ice-covered mountain. First off, eDNA doesn't tell you. That's mitochondrial DNA that tells you like mom is X, dad is something, or mixing of something. Those are very different ways of looking at DNA fragments. eDNA is specializing in like fragments of shedded DNA. It's like we are constantly shedding cells that break down and leave DNA fragments. That sounds more mitochondrial, which is cells. But Mount Everest, for example, which in the Himalayas or wherever, has like 4,000 or 5,000 human bodies on it right now. So every bit of snow and water you collect on there, I would 100%. I don't care if you're at the tip. I would imagine that you're going to have Homo sapien, hit. Also, which we can talk about, I don't know the person that collected this DNA. I don't know the documentary. I don't know their credentials. I'm not ragging on anybody. But getting a non-skewed sample would be very difficult. We talked about how easy it is to ruin a sample, and all you will get is Homo sapien. Because it's us, right? We are Homo sapiens. So if 2 weeks, I don't know, because here's the thing is it's really cold. You don't want your sample to freeze, but you want it to stay right at that level. Because when it freezes, it'll start actually breaking stuff apart faster. So it's, like I said, eDNA is very Very finicky. It's a very finicky new thing that we've been doing for a decade-ish now. And I don't think it'll be in that levels for another 2 or 3 decades, probably, of really refinement. But I guess that's a long way of saying is I just don't know. That sounds like they may have been saying the word eDNA and meaning mitochondrial DNA, because eDNA is a selling point right now in media and in stuff. So I could see maybe not the people that collected it, but a producer or whatever having that word exchanged to really push home that point, because they do that stuff. Like, we're friends with Renee from Finding Bigfoot, right?
Yes.
And they make Renee look like super skeptical and mean on the show. I'll tell you from personal experience hanging out with her, she's super nice. She's real. She's a real lady. She's a real person. She's super nice. She's really into the subject. But when you watch the TV show, she's super skeptic. She's hard. She's argumentative.
Yeah.
Because it's a producer cutting it that way,
right,
to make her look like that. So with that Sasquatch, with the Yeti, I'm sorry.
I met her last year at the Smoky Mountain Conference, and she was awesome. She was all about the subject. But go ahead.
Yeah. So that's all I'm saying is, when we start watching this stuff on TV and stuff like that, that's a little bit of an issue. Is that people that are making production decisions may not have anything to do with the science, the theory, the folklore, behind this stuff. That's Monster Quest was a little different because it was guys, that were into the subject, that were the producers, that were the. So that's why I always point to Monster Quest, because you could see it through, But yeah, I don't know. That sounds to me, not that the scientists or the people that did the expedition did anything fishy, but there may have been misconstrued information on the production side of events. Does that make sense?
Yeah, let me ask you this, Justin. If it was human contaminant, wouldn't it be 100% Homo sapien instead of 99?
See, that's the thing, is eDNA doesn't do like that. It just gives you a list of species present. So that's where I'm getting confused by the statement that you heard them make. Yeah. Is that sounds like something more like mitochondrial DNA.
No, it was very clear. She was collecting water out of it, and when they on the trackway, they were collecting snow. And I mean, they ended up showing some DNA. I don't know what it's called, but it's the world's largest sheep. Sheep.
The ibex,
something like that. Yeah, they're like 4 foot in shoulders. They're massive, but they're not.
So was she saying
to be up there? But they found their DNA up there.
So were they presenting it like that? That 99% of the sample was Homo sapien and 1% was ibex.
No. 99% of the sample was Homo sapien, and 1% was unknown. I guess the ibex was a completely different, a different area.
It's very confusing. I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry.
No,
because that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me currently. And she may,
if it doesn't make sense to you, it makes none to me, because that's what it said. I mean, it was like a dramatic end of production. We talked about production. Yeah, they save everything to the end to make it as dramatic as possible. But they're showing this scale from 1%, 2%, 3%, 50%, 60%, 70%, all the way up, and it stops at 99%, and it shows the frame of a human right beside it. So, and it said Homo sapien 99%.
Okay.
And it was eDNA, not mitochondrial, but eDNA.
I'll have to watch that just to see what they're talking, because they may not have done a good job of explaining what they were doing either.
No, they did not.
Yeah, that could be. To where it was something that
like
we talked about that.
Made completely for TV, because there was a prince over there that was very interested in the Yeti, and I think he funded the expedition. I think that's why they call it Kingdom of the Yeti. And I mean, it was interesting as hell. It was good watch, because it showed the journey from getting up there and how much it took for them to get there. And one dude almost died due to elevation sickness, and they had to
It's yeah.
what?
I think I've seen that one. Yeah, they're all sitting in the living room at the end going over the results of the.
Yep.
Yep, I did see
That's
that,
it.
and then it
And then
went
they
off.
get to go to the palace and they meet the prince and all that stuff. Yeah,
And everybody lived happily
I'll-
ever after, and then it went off.
that's it.
I'll have to watch this and then have you guys on our show, and we'll have the update on our show with you guys.
Please
Perfect.
do that.
Because
Mhm.
I don't, and it could be that they, we talked about that. Scientists use terms that they don't explain them, right? They just say something, and they expect the general populace, like a mechanic shouting stuff at you. In their field, it means a lot of stuff. To me, it means nothing. You might as well be screaming at me in Japanese.
Right.
I have no idea what they're saying. So I wonder if there's something with that too. Because I don't want to ever question, especially since I haven't seen it. I don't want to ever question anybody's credentials or their stuff. It just doesn't. The way it's being explained just doesn't make a lot of sense.
I'm like 99% sure it was the Travel Channel, and
I believe it.
Like 90% sure it was called Kingdom of the Yeti or something like that. I'll see if I can find it and get it to you guys. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, that's a great idea. Watch it and then bring us on, and we'll talk about it. But it could just be one of these made for TV things, and
there's a lot of that.
Trusting the fact that most of us aren't like you. We didn't go to school for this shit. We don't know. We can't call bullshit because we just don't know.
Jay has told me to not say anything to people before, because we'll be somewhere where I won't ever name any names. But you just hear something that's wrong, right? If it's your field of expertise, and you just hear something that's like flat wrong, and what I'll do is, I'm bad. I like to ask questions that I know the answer to, but they may not because they're talking about the subject. But no, I'm bad. I'm a bad person when it comes to that stuff. But no, I'll watch it because DNA is, it's a very complicated subject. And I just did the collections. I never ran it. I gave that to a different person. I was the collector, which in my opinion, is it's a very hard part of the job. None of it's easy, right? Nothing from the start to finish with DNA sampling is easy. But collecting it, you can ruin the sample. So to me, if it's 99% human, whether they mean it's 99% of the samples they got back were Homo sapien, or whatever they meant by that, to me is one of two things: a contaminated sample, or there's dead bodies all over the Mount Everest, and there's maybe a dead body in the bottom of that lake.
This is true.
And then that 1% could be a fault on the system. These things, like I saw, it's in its infancy still. They are not bulletproof. One quick story is a guy tried to claim that he found a new species of salamander in the Ozarks in one stream. And they were aquatic salamanders with gills on their head. They were fully aquatic. It's called neonate salamanders, where they stay in their juvenile form, but they still reproduce. But the weird thing about these salamanders is they were all different colors. And they were yellow and pinks and, whites and all this stuff. Everybody seen an axolotl?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They were axolotls, which are salamanders.
Yes.
But they were in a stream. Somebody released these axolotls in a stream in the Ozarks where there was no fish. So they started reproducing. It was cold water, which axolotls need really cold water. So to prove his point, he did an eDNA test and a mitochondrial DNA test. But his placard, his backboard he used for the testing sample, only had North American salamander species. So he got it as a new undetermined species. But another herpetologist came along and added Central American species to the panel. And guess what? They were axolotls. Because he manipulated the data to present it as an unknown.
Because
so that's what I mean with
criteria.
No, yeah, because he knew what he was doing. He was trying to make a name for himself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because they were clearly axolotls. Any herpetologist, I specialize in amphibians, or salamanders specifically in fish. Any herpetologist that sees that was like, that is a pet store axolotl that somebody threw in this stream. Like we're not questioning that this is a new species of salamander. But yeah, collection of DNA. You played the clip before and stuff. It sucks. It sucks. Mitochondrial DNA. If you think Bigfoot is even close related to humans, and I mean great ape, anything, and you're the samples that far. How many of those TV shows have you seen in the samples that far from their face, and they're like, "This is the best thing ever. This is the coolest thing ever." And I'm just sitting there, and I wish Jay was here because he'd be like, "That's where I'm like, idiots, 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 idiots." Because it's not real. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, because people don't realize when you exhale how far that goes out.
And you're just shedding DNA.
Yeah.
You're just exploding that sample. And there's ways of cutting, and then it comes down to money, right? DNA, any kind of sampling DNA is extremely expensive. And I mean extremely when we get down to that kind of stuff. So yes, you could sterilize the outside of those samples, cut it, and then take a new core sample from a hair follicle for mitochondrial DNA. We're talking, probably at that, tens of thousands of dollars for that sample. Easy, maybe more, depending on which lab and stuff like that. Do you have that? I don't have it to run on a, if I really, the only way I would ever get a loan to do a sample like that is if I literally watched it come off a Sasquatch and I collected it, because I believe people when they say, they have Sasquatch hair or whatever like that. They have a lot of hair. I believe it's out there. But you brought it in to me, holding it in your fingers. I can't do anything with this.
Right.
It's awesome, and I believe you, but you can't do anything with that. And that just shows you, and I'm not knocking any of the TV shows. We're friends, like I said, Made for Finding Bigfoot. We're friends with the Mountain Monster guys, which one of my favorite shows.
Yes.
But when you see somebody that's 6 inches from a hair sample, that it's either for TV or they don't know what they're doing fully. It's a very hard thing. People specialize in that for a reason, because it's a whole process. Like we literally, and you heard it on that. We had stuff to take out our gloves, to sanitize another pair of gloves. To take out forceps, to have mouth guards on, all this stuff just to make sure we didn't contaminate a sample. And we still did every once in a while. Every once in a while, we did all this extremely proper procedure, and you still get one back that's, sample tainted.
Yeah.
So there's my rant.
We are right here at the hour. We want to be sensitive of everyone's time, so we're going to jump to the question, the rapid fire question and answers.
You got me all night, so I don't rush for my benefit.
I mean, hey, I'm on it, man. I'm an insomniac, so I'm good to go.
The baby is already asleep.
If that's the case, then I may have to jump off and let you guys keep going because my daughter is outside screaming daddy. So I've got to get to Miss Scarlett, but we will jump into this rapid fire real quick. First, before the first question, I want to say thank you to Mr. Alex for the $5 super sticker. That's
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much, buddy. All right. The first question of the night is from Troy. He wants to know, what is a corn shark?
You'll have to listen to Cryptids of the Corn podcast in 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
That's fair.
But it is what it sounds like.
A shark that eats corn?
Shark.
Yeah.
We don't want to ruin it for you, so we will wait. Next question is also from Troy. How do you get a top specimen?
You got to have a body. Like you got to be able to either have a really good bone. You don't need like a full Sasquatch, right? You don't. If you have a good fresh bone, I mean, by fresh is relative. Depends on where it was. It depends on all kinds of factors, but you need a chunk of the animal first to be like it's undisputable. And like so with bones, like we could take DNA from the bone marrow that's uncontaminated. You cut the bone in half and you take a sample from in there, and you run it and you get the full sequence. And it's like the easiest way to compare it to is there's a punch card of species. Me, everybody in here, we all have very different DNA. That's mitochondrial. Like, you can tell us apart from our DNA. The eDNA doesn't do that. It compares species DNA. So you need to have that punch card, the ID card for the species made first, and that's how you do it. You have to have a body of some sort, whether it's a leg bone, a skull, a tooth that's unarguable. You can't hand us a bone sliver you can't tell what it is. You'll be like, this is a Bigfoot. I have no idea. No lab's going to be like, okay, Now a femur, we can get a lot of information off of like a femur because they're very distinctive per species. You can tell it's a primate or a great ape or a human. Whether it's a giant human or whatever. Those are different questions. But yeah, that's how you do it. You have to have a body.
Yeah.
Of the entities known as Bigfoot. Is that Troy again?
No,
Yeah,
that's
was
the thing he was
connected.
asking. It was connected.
Oh, sorry.
That's fine. Next question is from Ristel. Almost forgot. The hyena documentary. Awesome deep dive. Will there be more coming on that?
Yes, there will be. There's a chunk that got left out of it because I'm really bad at editing. So there'll be part 2 that was supposed to be in part 1. But no, we actually got a lot more people that reached out about it. And right now it's really just everything's kind of on pause with the lawn chair documentaries until the babies come. And then we're going to start scheduling it out because a lot of people, the hyena stuff is blown up. That's one of our, organic UFOs and hyenas. It's really weird. You do one episode about a guy that's seen a hyena. There's a friend of ours now from Kentucky. And we got hundreds of people saying, yeah, we just thought we just seen somebody's pet walking around. So yes, there's more coming to the hyena series.
I heard something in North Georgia that I always said sounded like a hyena, and I didn't know what the hell it was. It was the most scared I have ever been in my entire life. I've told the story several times. I'm on this expedition with all these hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, all just to gather evidence. And this thing starts, this combination bark laugh type thing it seemed like it was just right on top of us. And you know what I grabbed? I grabbed the 45 that was on my hip. That's all I grabbed. I didn't grab a recorder, anything like that, because that's how scared I was. But when I heard you guys talking about hyena, that caught my attention.
2 things is you probably did hear a hyena. I believe that they're, especially in Appalachia and northern Canada and stuff. I think they're there. And you heard it. We talked about it. That hyenas behave like 2 different animals, depending on if they're groups or if they're in singles. They're singles. They act like a big cat. They can be very quiet and stealthy and very, stocky. And if they're in big groups, they don't care. They're loud, they're boisterous, they're goofy because there's 50 of them. A hyena has a hell of a bite. Lions get murdered by hyenas all the time. And to that point you said about your gun that's a question I always hate with Bigfoot is, well, have you seen it? Why didn't you take a picture? I seen a Bigfoot. I didn't take no picture. Well, I came to the house crying. I have buddies. I've seen elk. I don't have any picture of elk. I've been 30, 40 feet from elk because I've seen elk and I'm like, I shouldn't be near these guys, and turned around and walked away. It's a Bigfoot or a hyena or, these big cryptids we're talking about are whole different things. You see one, you're like, I shouldn't be near this. This probably isn't good for my health. So your brain, most 99% of people don't think of it. Let me take a picture of that thing real fast before I go back to the car.
Exactly. You are exactly right, and that's the argument that I have always made, because I was one of those guys that questioned. Everybody's got a camera in their pocket on their phone. Why don't you have a picture? And then it happened to me right then.
Yep.
And I did not think for a second to get my phone out and start recording. I was thinking about myself and the 13-year-old boy that was standing beside me. I could feel shivering, like shaking, how scared he was. So
a lot of those.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say a lot of those questions come from people that live in cities. From my experience, we kind of, as humans, have forgotten that there's stuff above us on the food chain. You got in the woods with bear. I've never been around a grizzly. I've been around a lot of black bear, and I've never been in a scary situation, but seeing a 400 or 500 pound black bear or a mountain lion, I've seen mountain lion twice, and you're like, you really get that feeling. You're not on the top of the food chain. You have different reactions. Your guts and your brain starts screaming at you. You don't think about it. And the Bigfoot is even more so, or a Dogman, or whatever you've seen.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Justin, take just a second or however long you need and promote anything. Tell everybody where they can find you guys. Anything that you guys have working up, any projects or anything, go ahead and promote it.
Okay, first off, Cryptids of the Corn podcast. Find us on all podcast platforms. The website's cryptidsofthecorn.com. Check us out. We have so much fun. I think we're getting near that 300 episode mark on the public feed, and I think we're at 150. We have Patreon and a member space. So we have on our website, there's a member space or Patreon. Don't get both. They're the exact same thing, the same benefits. It's just one or the other. We have one person that got both, so thank you. Right now, the big thing we have, I think, 10 days left on our Trades Alps Giant Salamander Expedition Kickstarter. We have 10 days left. I think there's going to be some more donations coming in. We have to hit it, to get, it's Kickstarter. You have to hit the final goal to get the money. And that's to rediscover and save the Trades Alps Giant Salamander, which is a 6 to 8 foot long salamander seen in the Trades Alps, California, which is a cryptid, I believe, exists. Most of the eyewitnesses were herpetologists that seen it, originally. And I do not think it'll exist in 20 years. Its habitat's being eaten up by industry, recreation, all this stuff. And salamanders are the first ones to go with habitat impairment. So these big giants, these gentle giants of the northern trend of these Alps mountains, I think are going to be on the verge of extinction very soon if we don't save them. We have Facebook, we have Insta. Those are our two major socials. So we post everything on. We do a Cryptids and Coffee every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Me and Jay just being idiots for an hour on camera, yelling at each other a lot. I throw stuff at Jay. I've only ever hit him one time. So there you go. I think that's it. Conferences. Oh yeah, we're speakers at the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Festival. That is now the largest conference in the U.S. For the paranormal or Bigfoot or anything. They did 50,000 people last year, and I think they're on track to do 75,000 people this year. And we are amazingly honored to be speakers at that. And that's crazy. We're speakers at Squonkapalooza. And I think that's it. But we're going to a lot of other conferences we're just not speaking at. We had to kind of move some stuff around in the summer, with the babies coming. I think that's all the promotional stuff.
Awesome. Again, Justin, thank you so very much. I wish you and your wife and your family the absolute best. Hope everything turns out great for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and hanging out. And seriously, we Tiffany and I know I can speak for Tiffany. We would love to come on you guys' show anytime you would have us.
Absolutely. Just
as soon as I get good Wi-Fi.
when you get everything settled, holler at us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Thank you for it's a tough, but we appreciate you taking the time to come.
Happy to do it. It's an honor.
Thank you so very much, buddy. Have a good rest of your evening, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Good night.
Night. The coolest. It
really is. There's so much information tonight. I feel like tonight's episode. Oh my God.
I could just get his brain.
So good.
I feel so smart after listening to one of his and Jay's podcasts because him and Jay, they research, they get into it. They, and I'm like, oh, dang, I never knew that.
Yeah. One of the things, my good friend, Dr. John Baranchuk, one of the things I've always admired about him is his ability. He is so smart. He's brilliant, but he has this ability to, the way I put it, dumb things down to where average people can understand it. And that's what I got tonight from Justin. Yeah. He has that ability. He's very well versed in DNA and biology and all that stuff, but he had that ability to explain it to me the way in a way that I could understand it. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much.
Absolutely. It was good stuff. I knew it would be.
Yeah. All right, everybody in the chat, thank you so very much for being respectful and kind to our guests. Great questions, great comments. We got the super stickers and the additional members and all that stuff. Thank you guys so very much for all of that. We are going to get out of here because my daughter has been screaming at me for about 15 minutes to get in there. So, Tiffany, say your goodbyes, please.
Goodbye. Thank you guys for coming in, and we will see you Saturday. We will have Mr. Roger back on for his part 2. If you missed his part 1, go check it out on our channel. And until then, stay sweet.
All right, guys. Until we talk to y'all again, which will be Saturday, if we don't freak y'all with the okey doke and hit you before then, probably won't happen, but count on Saturday. All right, guys, y'all take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.